NHS Foundation Trust. Thank you so much for coming on. I mean, can you recall any industrial action that was potentially as harmful to patients as this one?
Not at all. And I started nursing in the 1980s, and I have never known industrial action of this scale. Junior doctors are essential to the running of the NHS, and their absence will definitely cause patients to have delays and harm. There's no other way around that, saying that.
Is part of the problem the timing coming, when so many senior staff who would be covering could be on leave anyway over Easter and so forth?
I don't think there's any good time for this. What we've seen in recent years is actually we have a workforce problem, a workforce crisis in the NHS. We have more vacancies than my memory, and I go back a long way, can remember. Increasingly, junior doctors are voting with their feet, going abroad, deciding not to go into higher training. We've seen quite a lot of people leave. And there's never going to be a good time for any of this, but it does come after the pandemic when a lot of routine operations and appointments were cancelled as well. So patients have already been waiting a very long time for their appointments and their operations, and this is just going to make it worse.
So do junior doctors, in your view, and you've run an NHS trust for quite a long time, do they have a good case, do you think, for a significant pay rise?
I think junior doctors are very responsible, committed people, and for them to take this level of action shows the strength of feeling. Now, we've heard from both sides about how both feels the other side's being intransigent, not moving, but actually we're not going to get anywhere unless the two sides actually do get in a room, sit down and talk about this. For there to be preconditions, it seems to me just not acceptable right now when patient care is suffering. I don't know the rights and wrongs of the 35%. You can look at the sums from both sides and see that there's justification both ways. But until people get and start talking about it and appreciate the points of view on both sides, we're going to get nowhere with this. And we all know at some point they are going to sit down and they are going to negotiate. So I think the sooner makes more sense than leaving it to a later date.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. But does 35% being your kind of headline demand, does that make it easier for the health secretary to turn around and go, well, look, that's unreasonable?
It depends where you want to start counting it from. And I've looked at the sums and how the junior doctors have calculated it. And I've looked at several reports on this. And I can see where they get that from. But I would also think that junior doctors are talking about salaries right now, but there's a lot of other issues tied up with this. There is the short staffing levels, that the fact that there are not enough junior doctors, they frequently find themselves with workloads that are unbearable, that there's an increase in the number of junior doctors suffering burnout. So I think that the salary is kind of like the canary in the mine almost, in a way. It's the final thing that's forced people to do this. I don't know if it is reasonable or not, really. I could sit down and do the sums. I could make it reasonable. I could make it unreasonable. But what does need to happen is that people need to sit and talk about this and find a middle way, because the only people that are suffering in this are the patients.
Yeah, and now while you're here, just a quick word on the report into the trust that you left, I think, back in 2018, I think it was, now talking about, repeated cases, bullying, toxic environment and so forth. I mean, did you recognise any of that? What did you make of the report?
I didn't recognise any of that. I mean, clearly it's happened after I left. I don't recognise what was in there. I wasn't involved in the report. Nobody spoke to me about it beforehand. And so I don't, the incidents that were described happened after I left. So I'm afraid I can't add anything to that.
No, but I mean, but do you, staff saying that it was a climate of fear, putting patients at risk, how do you feel about that being what happened in a trust?
I feel very, very sad about it. It's not the trust I would recognise, and it's not the place I left. So I don't know. I don't know what's gone on. It's certainly not. The staff I worked with were all absolutely committed, brilliant professional staff. So I don't recognise that at all.
OK, just finally, the doctors' strike. What needs to happen now, in your view?
Then people need to be working 24 hours a day to resolve this, because it's the only thing that can actually get back to providing patient care and to making sure that we've got a workforce fit for the future. We can't afford to lose any more junior doctors. We need them all.
OK, Dame Julie, appreciate your time. Thanks very much.